Batman, Superman, The Flash, Green Arrow, Deathstroke, these are characters that I grew up loving as a kid in the pages of DC Comics, and now for the first time ever, there is a tabletop experience that truly brings the feeling of these DC heroes and villains battling each other to life, and that is DC Dice Masters. Yes, it is part of the Dice Masters series, so there's Marvel Dice Masters, D&D, there's even Yu-Gi-Oh! Dice Masters, everything is Dice Masters, right? And DC is the latest, and really honestly, if you've played Marvel Dice Masters, it's not going to be that different to you, but maybe you haven't played Marvel Dice Masters because it's not always easy to find in stores. So the question is Dice Masters in general worth playing? And more specifically, how does DC Dice Masters maybe differ from the others, and is it worth picking up over Marvel Dice Masters? Those are some of the questions I'm going to be answering, but first, in case you don't know how to play it, here's a look at a general overview of how DC Dice Masters works. You and your opponent field a team of heroes and villains, represented by a card that reveals their abilities for this match, and dice that will represent them in the field. Everyone begins with 8 agents, who are like pawns in chess. You'll have to purchase more powerful dice if you want to win. Let's break down these cards and dice. The cards show the energy cost to purchase a die. One of the die energy must match this type. This is their affiliation, useful for some abilities. This is the ability for the die. Some have global actions. Anyone can pay this cost to use this ability, even if no die is fielded. Warning, a lot of people forget to ever use these. And this shows all 6 faces of the character die you're purchasing, and the maximum number you can store on this card at the start of a turn. As for the dice, some sides of these character dice will have energy used to purchase more dice. Some have a symbol for the character, the cost and energy to put them in the field, their attack strength, their defense, and if this version can access special abilities that may be on their character card. There are also 4 action cards in the game. These can be purchased by either side, and offer 2 generic energy, or have a burst that can sometimes activate abilities on these action cards. Alright, let's get to a fight. Each step of your turn will alternate between the first and second player. First, you draw 4 dice from your bag. Roll them, then re-roll as many as you like one time. Pay energy to field characters, spend energy to buy new dice, use any action dice or global abilities you want. The first player chooses who to send in to attack. Any characters you assign to attack cannot be used that same turn to block, so be judicious in who you choose. The second player chooses blockers, if any, and assigns them to attackers. Unblocked attackers get through and do direct damage to the player, but then go to the used pile, meaning they won't be coming back until you draw them from your dice bag. For opposed attackers, compare the attack power against their defense for both the attacker and the blocker. Their combat happens simultaneously, so they can, potentially, knock each other out. Characters that are knocked out go here, and will be part of your roll next turn. That's right, getting characters knocked out isn't actually a bad thing because you get to add them back into your dice pool, expanding how many dice you get to use on your next turn. If your character survives, move him back to the field. You'll be able to activate him again next battle. All wounds heal, and the round ends. Players have 20 hit points, and the first one to get to 0 loses the battle. I am a big fan of Dice Masters. I love Dice Masters from the minute that Marvel Dice Masters came out. I was really happy that DC Dice Masters came out. And the best part about this is that they work together. So you can totally have a mix of Marvel versus DC, or you can have Batman and Superman teaming up against Magneto and Green Arrow, or whatever kind of weird mixture that you want to have going on. You could totally make it happen, and the systems work flawlessly together. That's an absolutely great thing about it. I'm going to say that Marvel Dice Masters has a slight advantage though, because most people know more of the Marvel characters. So you got to be a really big, I think, DC Comics fan to really enjoy this. If you don't know who Stargirl is, if you don't know who Zatanna is, and I do, but if you don't, I think it's less interesting, right? It's not as much fun to play with, Constantine in your deck. If you've never even heard of who Constantine is, you just lose a little bit of that flavor. And I do think Marvel has far more characters that people are familiar with that makes it a little bit more enjoyable. So make sure you're a big DC nerd before you pick this up. And I'm going to tell you a couple things that I dislike about this game, because I do think it is really fun. It's a very intelligent, very smartly balanced game. But the two things I really dislike is, so one, a big strategy is that you want to take these agents, right, who only have one health and they only have one block, and you never want to attack with them. You leave them for defense. And the thing is that unless somebody has a special ability, all of their attack is just going to get absorbed by this guy when you block, and none of it's going to go to you. And he gets knocked out, goes back in your dice pool, and the attack basically does nothing for the other player. And if you're smart about it, you can really make the game slog. And that's a big problem, is that two people playing together who really understand this strategy, they can make this game go on for an hour. It's just a little bit too long. The other problem I have with it is that the tournament rules state that you play with 8 characters, 2 basic actions each, and most people play with that, and they got 20 lives, 20 total dice among these characters. To me, in my experience, it's just too much. There's too many characters, it's too hard. A lot of times you don't even get dice from a lot of the characters. There's just a lot of rules you gotta worry about, who's got global abilities, who can activate with this and that. And honestly, I think you need to streamline the game and ignore what the tournament rules say unless you're playing in an official capacity. I would absolutely play with even as little as 4 characters, and as most 6 on each side. It will definitely make the game flow a little bit better. And there are rules in the rulebook that will explain how to adjust your health and the maximum amount of dice based on the number of characters in play. But I think that is the biggest thing, lower the amount of characters that you're gonna have in the game. If you do that, I think you're gonna have a lot of fun with it. I think this is one of my favorite just straight up dice games that I have. It's really enjoyable, and the best part is that the boosters only cost $1 each, and they give you 2 cards and 2 dice, so you can just kind of slowly build up a pool of DC characters over the course of a couple of months, just spending a couple of dollars each day, or each day. Well, if you want to spend it each day, go for it. But you know, every week you go into the game store, you just give them like $3, get 3 packs. Like before you know it, within 2 months, you're gonna have a really cool group of characters, and it's not gonna have cost you that much to collect them all. That is awesome. So DC Dice Masters, same as Marvel Dice Masters, enjoy them both. I think that if you're a DC comic book fan, definitely pick this one up.